Welcome to that indie talk. As you know, this is for Women's Month. So I just wanted to create a safe space for women, women athletes, women runners, swimmers, to discuss issues that affect them and issues that they think affect other women. I've been doing this for every year since I started the blog. So I want you to feel free and just discuss whatever's on your chest.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the platform, and thank you for having me back.
Yeah, it's been how many years now? I think
4. Yeah, it's been like 4 years. It's been a while, and a lot has changed in that period. A lot.
It was after what, Tokyo?
Yeah, and a lot has changed since then.
I can imagine. So yeah, just, the first question, in 4 years, a lot has happened. People who were part of the movement or the platform then have moved on. There's been people who joined, and for people that are watching this, I'd like you just to introduce yourself to the world.
So my name is Palesa. I'm 29. I'm doing my master's in human rights law in Ireland, and I've been an avid runner basically all my life. When I was first featured on the platform, I used to run marathons, and because of a very bad ankle injury, I've kind of slowed down from that, and I kind of just focus now on doing very short distances and just running again, just for pure love and not competitively like I used to.
And how's your injury coming along?
It's better. I mean, when I first got to Ireland, it was difficult to walk because I think people who live in Europe would understand that you walk a lot. You walk everywhere. So I think it was first difficult when I got here. So once I got a pair of insoles fitted for my shoes, I think it's been the best decision ever because I'm walking a bit more comfortably. And because I can walk, I can also run now. So that's something new.
And why Ireland? So I'm that's quite interesting to me because a lot of people that leave here to go study in Europe, they'll go to the UK, or they'll go to America. Why specifically Ireland?
Okay, so I had a choice. I actually had made it. I had gotten 2 scholarships, one to the UK and one to Ireland. And I don't know, Ireland seemed like the less problematic one. I think Brexit kind of did sway my decision. It was a very big part of my decision making. And I think I'm glad I chose Ireland because the people are friendly. It's such a beautiful place. Besides the fact that it's always grey and raining, I love it here.
When you contrast it to back home, which is in South Africa, what are the major differences that you've experienced so far?
Okay, the major difference here is because it's always raining, people don't let the weather stop them from doing anything. They just kind of get along and do it anyway, because if you had to wait for the weather to come right this side, you would never get anything done. And I think it's also, people walk a lot here as well because everything is within walking distance. So there's a lot of a walking culture. There's a cafe culture. People love going to cafes as well. And I think another difference is it's a lot safer. The main difference is you don't feel the need to constantly look over your shoulder. I've been walking to a party at 2 a.m. by myself. I felt completely safe. And I think for me, that's been the main difference. I no longer have that fear when I'm walking out late at night.
Oh, wow, nice. And okay, you're a runner, you moved to Ireland, but what else is there to you? What else do you enjoy apart from running? And have you picked up anything new since you've moved overseas?
One thing I really enjoy ever since I've gotten here is hiking. Ireland has some of the best hiking spots in the world. And the best thing about hiking here is you don't have to worry about snakes because Ireland has 0 snakes. So I think it's made hiking a very, very nice pastime here. And something that I got into when I got to Ireland, which I would have never probably done when I was in South Africa, is I co-hosted a student radio show for my campus, which is something completely out of my comfort zone, something I would have never actually ever tried if I never came to Ireland.
I want to touch on the issue of snakes. How do they not have any snakes in the country?
What thing is, you remember the temperature in Ireland? Snakes usually survive in very hot climates, your Australia and stuff. So Ireland, it's very cold generally. So obviously there aren't any snakes, and I think it makes it very beautiful when you go hiking. But it's also very wet, so hiking can be a bit more dangerous because it's a lot more slippery than your average place because it's constantly raining as well.
I like that you've tried something new by joining the campus radio station. So I actually haven't listened to your show. I should listen to your show. What is your show about? What time does it air? What do you guys discuss?
Okay, so it used to play when I was on campus. It was every Wednesday at about 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And we just used to play some African music and talk about real life topics affecting us at the time. And a big topic when we were still doing the radio show was COVID and how it's affected our lives and how it's changed, and how a lot more people are experiencing a lot more stress in their lives because of the COVID and having to adjust to a different life.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of a book that I need to finish. It's called The Life Elsewhere, and basically it details the lives of people who are living in the diaspora. So it's all people who were born in Africa or they have descendants in Africa, but they're living in other countries. And it just basically narrates the experiences of being a foreigner in that specific country and trying to survive in that country. It's a very interesting.
Yeah.
Moving on from that.
And I think because it was, I'm saying because it was also election here in Ireland, I also touched a lot on the politics of Ireland. So I think I also got to learn a lot as well about what's actually going here, what are the contentious issues here, and what needs to be changed.
And if you compare that to politics back home, is it dirtier? Are the issues more important, or are they more social issues?
I think issues are similar in terms of, I would highlight the fact that there aren't many women in politics, and I think South Africa and Ireland have that in common. And I think even though Ireland has had a woman president, which was, I think, in 1992, they haven't kind of advanced since then. So they've kind of like taken steps back. And I think they are comparable to South Africa in terms of, I don't think for a long time they will have another female president in place. And I think the biggest issue here that I see has been direct provision, which is the program for asylum seekers in Ireland. It's meant to last a period of 6 months, but we know people here who've been in direct provision for years because it's a system that just doesn't work.
So what does that mean for them? Do they not become citizens, and are they basically living off of the good?
Yeah, so basically they're in limbo for an extended period of time. And direct provision is meant to last for a period of 6 months, but we know people who are there for 5 years. Like you're in a period of limbo for that time. You get what I'm saying? You can't get you can't get the provision, you can't get the benefits of being a citizen, but you also can't, you get what I'm saying? It's like you're in limbo the whole time. So it's like a bad place to be.
I understand. It's sort of like being stuck at the airport where you don't belong to anyone.
Yeah.
And you're just like chilling there waiting for something to happen, which I guess might be very frustrating for the people there because they left their countries to look for a better life and now they're just stuck.
Yeah, and I think also there's something I need to highlight is most people aren't safe in their countries, which is why they had to leave. And most of the time they had a real life fear for their lives, which is why they leave their countries, coming to a country like Ireland, seeking a better life. So it's not as if they can just go back and, you know, just join society again in their country. They have a real fear for their lives, which is why they had to go.
I also find it interesting that the politics there's not a lot of women, and you would think that European countries are very progressive in terms of women representation and women's rights.
Not really. I mean, if you look at Ireland specifically, they aren't very progressive in having female representation. It's something that I looked at. Whereas you get a country like Rwanda, which is renowned for leading the way with having women representation in politics. and it's something that isn't associated with Africa, because, you know, Africa is associated with problems. We aren't associated with being progressive and having women lead politics like we do have in Rwanda.
Interesting. But those are like heavy topics. I think we could go on and on about topics like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
We know nothing about politics and all of that. Yeah, so you established who you are, your journey, you've moved from South Africa to Ireland, now temporarily living there. You've discovered a new sport, which not really sport, an activity, which is hiking.
Yeah.
So that kind of details where your fitness journey is now, but I'd like for you to give us more context on where your fitness journey started, because I know you started running as a child and your father's very active.
Yeah, so I started running like when I was 7. I was picked for the athletics team at school, so I started running over shorter distance. And then in grade 3, once we were kind of trying out for cross country, and somehow I was 9 years old, I came first. And that just spiraled into many things, because I went on to represent Gauteng. I got an award same year for being the best cross country athlete in the whole school. I was only in grade 3 at that time. So I think I just started from there, knowing that I was actually good at this thing. I think that's how it just started with me. And having a coach as well who was dedicated to making me even better than I was.
And then we move on from primary school, you get to high school. Did you still continue with sports? Because for me, I would play sports in primary school, but in high school, we didn't have tennis, so I just stopped.
I did continue, but I found that because I went to a school where we didn't compete in cross country, it became more for fun. So it wasn't competitive anymore. It just became, oh, I'll compete for fun, and I could only compete when we went to like run your Spa 10K or 5K. That was my only time I could compete, and I still found that I was still pretty fast, because I would run with those people who were representing Gauteng, the juniors and stuff. I would be up in front with them. So I think it's something that I've always loved and just somehow being good at.
And then we move on from high school. I cannot believe you're doing like races, like Spa races in high school, because even today I don't see high school students doing those races.
I did, because I started doing the 5K for a couple of years, and then I think when I was in grade 11, I was like, let me try out the 10K. So the first time I did the 10K, I was like in grade 11.
Wow. So now you've left high school, we're at Wits. Are you still running?
The first couple of years, no, because I could barely cope with the workload. Well, that's what I initially thought. I thought I couldn't add extra activities because I was barely coping with the workload. But I think like it was, and that's when I joined the Nike Run Club when it was still happening at Rosebank. That was the first time I joined with Andrew, which is we're studying together. He invited me one day, and that was the first time I ran with people who were just running. That was my first time experiencing kind of the run culture in Gauteng.
Oh wow. And it's quite surprising because I met you at Nike Run Club, and Andrew's still running with Brunfy Runners. We're still there. Palesa, are you still there?
Yeah, because they're the one who got me into the, yeah.
So continuing on your running
Now I'm saying I'm grateful to Brunfy Runners because they actually got me into the habit of running. I became one of those people who used to wake up every Saturday morning to join Brunfy Runners, and then the NRC came, I became even more consistent. So I think when those things came along, my running definitely became more consistent. It wasn't, it's raining right now, I won't run. Whereas at NRC or with Brunfy Runners, rain or shine, we would get up and we would run.
Which is something that I always tell people that I run with now, because there was a crew that I was running with in Santon, and if there was like a gray cloud, they'd be like, no, we're not running, it's going to rain. And I'd be like, guys, you are waterproof, you know? You're not
Yeah.
gonna die from running in the rain.
Mm.
So yeah, you became a more consistent runner to the point where you completed Tokyo Marathon. How was the experience of doing an
Yeah.
international marathon?
Yeah, and it was
Snap.
I feel to the culture of running. Everybody spoke about putting their names into the ballot, and somehow Andrew and I were the only people who got selected through the ballot system, and we went to go run Tokyo Marathon. And when we had put our names in the ballot, neither of us had ever run a marathon in our lives. So after we put our names in the ballot and we found out that we made it, it was also the task of before we got to Tokyo. So we knew that we would. My preparation was quite interesting because I twisted my ankle in September before the race, and the race was meant to be in February for a period of time. But I still insisted on running on a bad ankle. I worked with a biokineticist. I was just like, rain or shine, whether this ankle feels Tokyo, and that's basically how I completed the Tokyo Marathon, because my ankle did fail me, I think, halfway through the race, and I had to walk half the race because I literally was in so much pain I could not run.
And apart from Tokyo Marathon, you also did Soweto Marathon, right?
Yeah, so Soweto Marathon was actually my first marathon. And here I was, Palesa, running with my ankle brace because I insisted that I needed to run this marathon. My body, my legs said I wasn't ready. I had an ankle guard supporting my ankle, but somehow I still insisted on running the marathon, and I finished the distance. And I think for me, that was the main thing. Finish the distance. It wasn't even about the time. It was just knowing that my body could do the distance. And I think that was the first one. And then I ran Johnson Crane in January. That was my second marathon. I had a better time. And then Tokyo was my third marathon. So by the time I ran Tokyo, I had 2 marathons under my belt.
Oh, wow. And after that, have you ran any more marathons or half marathons?
Yeah, so after Tokyo, I did run a couple more Soweto marathons. I think I ran like 2 more Soweto full marathons. I ran a couple more Johnson Crane. I ran a couple more marathons, but I think in 2017, I had to stop when my ankle kind of just said, no, enough now. It had reached its limit, and just I couldn't anymore. Excuse me?
I was saying, ankle was saying, you have done enough. It's time to stop.
Yeah, because imagine me running on a bad ankle for 2 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not a good idea. I wouldn't suggest that to anyone.
So no comrades going forward, no 2 Oceans.
Well, that's the thing. The year I was meant in 2017, which is the year I stopped running. I had ran the Johnson Crane. After that, my body just said no. I had signed up for the Comrades Marathon. I was ready. I had qualified. I had also qualified for 2 Oceans, but my body was just like, nah,